And now, aviation weather around Alaska.
Thursday morning's flying weather. We've got IFR here into the southwest interior, as well as Kodiak Island up into southern Cook Inlet and then up into Prince William Sound there. And that also extends into the Kuskokwim Valley with marginal VFR to the west to another band of IFR, central Bering Sea, that extends down to Adak and then back to marginal conditions and yet another VFR or IFR band over the Komondorskis, trying to slide into Shimianatu. Big area IFR up here, Brooks Range and the Arctic coast. A smaller area there from, say, the Kobuk Valley westward into Kotzebue Sound, Shishmaref, maybe Buckland. And southeast coast, pretty good. VFR over the areas north of the Alaska Range here from the central interior up into the Yukon Flats and along the Porcupine River. And for the afternoon, IFR pretty much well entrenched. Brooks Range to the Arctic coast through the Bering Strait here and covering the northern Bering Sea and southeastward in across the Alaska Peninsula there and a little bit inland over the Yukon-Kuskokwim Delta. But IFR for Nunivak Island, the Pribilofs, eastern Aleutians, eastern central Aleutians, pretty good there with marginal or better conditions here with marginal VFR becoming IFR from about Amchitka Island westward. And for the southeast coast, staying VFR, still VFR in the eastern interior, but marginal conditions spreading farther eastward there into the Tanana Valley, or VFR for Kodiak Island. And VFR holds for Kodiak Island on Friday morning. Improving conditions here over the western interior. We're now VFR through the central part of the state into the over into Canada actually. IFR along the southern slopes of the central Alaska Range there, and that extends down across the Talkeetnas into the Manuska Valley, North Gulf Coast, and mostly Prince William Sound there to Cordova, maybe Cape St. Elias, but marginal for Yakutat. It looks like some marginal VFR right along the outer coastline of the Panhandle, otherwise staying VFR over the inside waters through Friday morning. And for the southeast Bering Sea, we've got some areas of IFR there, and marginal VFR for the Alaska Peninsula all the way west to Adak, from there westward, IFR. And for Friday afternoon, area of IFR increases here over the southern southwest Bering Sea and advances eastward there across Atka Island, otherwise marginal VFR into the southwest coast, covering much of the Yukon and Kuskokwim Delta, actually the entire area there that should bank up along the Kuskokwim Mountains, but marginal VFR right up the Yukon River Valley there and northward to the Brooks Range, with IFR for the Arctic coast extending right down across the DeLong Mountains into the northwest coast of the northern Seward Peninsula. And it stays VFR here for the Panhandle. And for passes tomorrow, Anatuvik, IFR, Adigan, another IFR day coming up there. And for Lake Clark and Merrill, IFR, especially on the eastern entrances, rainy, IFR, lowest conditions on the eastern entrance. And for windy, IFR, with the lowest conditions being on the southern entrance. And Isabel, marginal VFR, possible IFR south side. And for Mintasta, VFR. Tanita, occasionally marginal. Portage, IFR. Chilkoot and White, another VFR day for both those passes. Freezing levels here about 2,000 feet up along the Arctic coast, and then it dives southward here through the Bering Strait, St. Lawrence Island, to near Nunivak Island, 4,000 feet, all the way down toward the eastern Aleutians and Alaska Peninsula. Otherwise, about 8,000 to 12,000 feet here across the southeast interior and the southeast coast. 14,000 foot freezing levels there tomorrow morning, supporting those afternoon highs in the 70s, and about 6,000 to 8,000 feet here over the southwest Bering Sea. And looking at icing, again, a lot of moisture up here to the north, so that's good with the frontal boundary and shifting eastward. So that's going to increase the icing threats here through the central interior with the heaviest moderate icing mixed or rime here from the Brooks Range, northern Koyukuk Valley area out to the eastern Arctic coast. And then another batch here with another surge of moisture coming into the western Aleutians. And from there, taking a look at the jet stream, pretty sharp trough here across the, from the Chukchi Sea right on down across the Alaska Peninsula, kind of an asymmetrical wind flow around that. Good south to north flow here, pulling warm air, building this upper level ridge, feeding that warm air into this upper level ridge here at the higher elevations over Canada, keeping it nice over the southeast coast, but we're looking at winds up to 145 knots here in the central interior. And back out to the west, northwesterlies 100 to 125 knots. And for 9,000 feet, west-northwest, about 40 knots over the central Bering Sea. See them picking up again here ahead of another system there farther to the west. Sharp trough right through here along the west coast. South to north southerly flow here, anywhere from 50 to 75 knots, right on up across Arctic Village. But light over the Panhandle. 3,000 feet, light variable winds here for the southeast coast. South to north flow here with this low over Bristol Bay, 45 to 50 knots right into Prince William Sound, with gusty winds right into the across the Alaska Range there, but not quite as strong there. Easterlies 40 knots on the eastern Arctic coast, northeast 40 knots there around Point Lake, Cape Lisburne, Point Hope area, turning north and diminishing there as they blow across the Bering Strait, and lighter here over the eastern Bering Sea, and then you can see a big increase in the winds of that next front pushing in farther out to the west. Turbulence-wise, with those winds, considerable minor turbulence, shimmy in at 2 back to the Komodorsky Islands. Lighter here for the central Bering Sea and the central Aleutians. Pick up some occasional or isolated moderate turbulence here. Mechanical turbulence with some gusty north winds there for the Alaska Peninsula. And then look for considerable moderates for south central Alaska, Prince William Sound area. Kenai Peninsula right on up to the Alaska Range, maybe even into the Tanana Valley, and up here along the western Arctic coast, northwest coast areas, down to the Bering Strait, some pretty bumpy conditions there as well. Rather smooth for the southeast coast.